Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's live presentation on unlocking the power of Oracle Cloud Enterprise PCM for business success. Today, you'll hear from Andrew LaFurla, Profitability Product Director at Alithya, about how Oracle Cloud EPCM empowers leaders by providing accurate and actionable insights. We will try to leave time at the end of the session to answer any questions in the chat. So with that, I'll turn it over to Andrew here to get started.
Great. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining our webinar for today. As Mary mentioned, my name is Andrew LaFurla, and I'm going to be presenting today on unlocking the power of Oracle Cloud Enterprise PCM for business success. So a little bit about myself before we get stuck into the presentation. My name is Andrew LaFurla. I'm the Product Director for Profitability and Cost Management here at Alithya. I've been very fortunate over the last 15 years to work with some absolutely amazing clients over many different industries in the Oracle EPM, in implementing Oracle EPM. I have always been focused on Oracle implementing allocation solutions in Oracle. So I'm very happy to be presenting to you today on a topic that I've really loved over the last 15 years. I do have two roles within Alithya. I play as a solution architect on our projects, implementing and ensuring our allocation solutions are successful. I also play a product director role, which is really involved in and ensuring that I can provide knowledge to the Oracle community on the Oracle profitability solutions to both the internal and external communities. So a lot of that is working with Oracle, making sure that I'm up to date on the latest and greatest that is coming out, and sharing that with customers as well as friends, as well as colleagues. And of course, I also do a lot of beta testing for Oracle, and I also just continually try to share my knowledge with the community. In terms of the company that I work for Alithya, specifically for the Oracle practice. We've had over 25 years of experience. We used to be Edgewater Renzel. Now we're Alithya Oracle. So over those 25 years, we've implemented at over 1,200 clients. We've had over 3,000 projects. Over 700 of them have been Oracle Cloud projects. We have about 320 Oracle consultants right now, and we actually have 8 Oracle ACEs. So I'm fortunate enough to be one of them as well. We are going to be focusing on Oracle EPM today, but of course, we do a lot more in the cloud, specifically focusing on Oracle. We do the ERP side, ACM side, and HCM side as well. We provide advisory services, roadmaps, training services, and so forth. We do give cloud technology services such as data services, integration services, analytics, and security services. And we have been involved in pretty much every industry you can think of. So from financial services all the way down to utilities. And one of the things that does make us a little different is we are, of course, an Oracle Platinum partner, but we are actually a Oracle customer as well. So we have both Oracle EPM, ERP, and HCM implemented in our organization. Now, today we are going to be focusing on 4 agenda topics. So we're firstly going to introduce what Oracle Cloud Enterprise PCM is. We'll introduce both from giving you an idea of what it actually is, as well as a little bit about what its history looks like and how we got here. Then we're going to go into a little bit about the use cases for Oracle Cloud Enterprise PCM and why it's more than just about profitability analytics. And then we're going to come back and look at why businesses and why organizations are using Oracle Cloud PCM and Oracle Cloud Enterprise PCM. And we'll look at some customer stories to help relate and show you how those use cases have been implemented at clients and some of the benefits they've got from them. And then finally, hopefully we have enough time, but we'll do some closing and Q&A at the end as well. So let's get started. What exactly is Oracle Cloud Enterprise Profitability and Cost Management? So obviously quite a mouthful. That's why we tend to reduce it to just PCM for Profitability and Cost Management, or EPCM for Enterprise Profitability and Cost Management. But really, before we tell you what that is, we really got to introduce it in context to the Oracle Cloud EPM world. So if you are an Oracle Cloud customer, you would have seen this diagram. But really what the gist of it is if you have a need for enterprise performance management within your organization, whether it be connected planning, whether it be comprehensive financial close, whether it be analytics and reporting, and everything in between, Oracle EPM is really where you can go to have that. It's your one-stop shop for everything enterprise performance management related. And the Oracle Profitability and Cost Management and Enterprise Profitability and Cost Management sits within this world as well. So we're going to go into the use cases a little more, but if you want to do transfer pricing for management reporting or profitability insights, profitability and cost management is the tool that you're going to utilize that. And very importantly, if you own or you have the enterprise licensing from Oracle, anything that I'm going to be talking about today is included in your enterprise license. So nothing is going to be over that. We're not going to try and sell you something that you don't have already if you've got the Oracle enterprise license. Great. So let's talk about the topic at hand. What is Oracle EPM PCM? Again, we're going to be dealing with a lot of acronyms today. But really, prior to 2008, Oracle really did see a lot of their clients implementing profitability or allocation solutions in planning or in airspace. And what they really wanted to do was to say to those clients, well, let's take that need. We see enough of a need that a lot of clients are doing this. Let's create a purpose-built business process for you to leverage so that you can provide hidden insights into your profit and expenses, so that you can enable business users to take ownership, so that we can reduce your reliance on IT and also enable greater automation. We can enable you to do what-if analysis and overall help you create a culture of accountability around your allocations. And that's really where the genesis of Oracle Profitability and Cost Management comes from. It's really Oracle's answer to try striking that balance between a business-owned allocation engine and one that produces rich analytical results to help you analyze your fundamental drivers of cost. Now, Alithya and Edgewater Renzel has been doing allocations and implementing allocation solutions for a very long time, even before Oracle PCM came out. And in that time, we've really looked at implementing our allocation solutions in a way that is fast. So any allocation solution, we want it to be fast. We want it to be flexible. So we want it to be rapid, to have the ability to rapidly evolve our allocation methodologies to adapt to our changing business environments. We want to be able to do what-if analysis, and we want to be able to change as our world around us changes, as our needs change. Of course, we want it to be accurate. So we want to be able to not only defend our results, but also have trust in our results. We want to have the ability to say that this is our results, this was accurate, I can prove it in a very, very strict way. We want to be able to utilize shared methodologies across our different management cycles. So I don't want to have different allocation solutions for actuals versus forecast versus budget. I want to have one allocation solution that can cater for all the different management cycles. And of course, I want transparency. I want to be able to defend my costs, but also all my allocation solution results. But I want to be able to trace it both back from my allocation results all the way back to my pre-allocated inputs. And I want to be able to trace my pre-allocated inputs all the way to my post-allocated results. And that, of course, has huge impacts. And that really is what Oracle Profitability and Cost Management is. It's an allocation solution that is fast. But of course, it's gone through an evolution, like everything else in this world. So as I mentioned, in 2008, Oracle really saw the need to produce a purpose-driven or a purpose-built allocation solution. And that's really where standard profitability was born. So standard profitability was Hyperion Profitability and Cost Management standard profitability. It was on-premise, and it was incredibly good at doing very complex allocations. But the problem with it was that it couldn't handle volume. And that's when Oracle in 2012 released detailed profitability. Detailed profitability was about handling volume. And it really was designed to work with standard profitability. So standard profitability did your complex allocations. Detailed profitability handled your volume. And that's okay, it works. But you really want one tool. You don't want to have different allocation processes between two different technologies. You want to have it in one tool. And that's where Management Ledger came in. So in 2015, Oracle released Management Ledger. Management Ledger was a huge jump forward for us because it was able to handle the allocation complexity of standard profitability and a lot of the volume that detailed profitability could. It also changed the way we modeled in a lot of ways. It became a lot more dynamic in how we actually built allocation solutions. And very importantly, it provided the foundation for Oracle Cloud PCM or PCMCS at that stage. And that really, what they did, Oracle at that stage, is they took Management Ledger and ported it over to the cloud. And that's important because when they did that port over, they ported it over into its own platform. So that had its advantages. They were able to adapt and improve PCM at quite a rapid pace, PCMCS at quite a rapid pace. But it had a big disadvantage that as the common EPM platform matured and as it got more and more benefits, specifically in reporting, data management, dimension management, PCM started to get left behind. And in 2022, Oracle released Enterprise Profitability and Cost Management. And really what that was taking the modeling capabilities out of PCM or PCMCS and combining them with a common EPM platform. So now you get all of the richness of the capabilities of the modeling capabilities of PCMCS with all of the amazing common EPM functionality such as dashboards, data forms, data integrations, and all those amazing things. And if you're deploying your allocation solution today, Enterprise PCM is really where you want to be. The only real aspect or the only real way that I would not want to deploy on Enterprise PCM is if the client didn't have the Enterprise license. That's pretty much it. Otherwise, everyone else should start looking at going into Enterprise PCM. It's that good. Now, let's talk a little bit about our use cases. So when we talk about Oracle profitability and cost management, we tend to get stuck on that first part, on the profitability side. So we kind of get stuck and say, well, if I have a profitability use case, great, I can use PCM. But if I have anything else, PCM's not for me because PCM only does profitability. And that's not true. Of course, PCM can do profitability, can provide those insights into profit concentrations, risks, and opportunities, but it can also do costing. So you can also gain flexibility and consistency into your cost allocations. It can do shared service costing to help reduce your pushback from divisional leaders. It can do intercompany billing and operational transfer pricing. And of course, it can also do IT spend analytics to help you better understand the cost effectiveness of services and projects delivered by IT. It can do investment analytics to help you drive strategy and insights into, and ultimately improve your profitability. And of course, it can do scenario modeling to unlock possibilities, proactively managing swift market change and evaluating opportunities. And of course, it can do more. Some of the more interesting use cases that we're seeing coming up is carbon emissions costing. So that's something that is not included here, but it is definitely something that PCM can do. But to help simplify our world at Alithya, really what we came up with was a use case classification. So when we go to clients, when we talk to clients, we often ask them, how are you utilizing PCM? What is the overall objective for your PCM tool? And there's often 5. We kind of group them into 5 high-level classifications. As I say, not absolutely all of them will fit into this, but by and large, 95% of all clients, the way they use PCM or we have use allocation solutions will fit into one of these 5. And we see clients doing shared service allocations, for example. That's obviously about taking your group overhead, cost and allocating them out, as well as group services, occupancy, finance, IT. We have intercompany billing use cases where, excuse me, such as transfer pricing or contractual charges allocations, where we're moving or we're charging or we're creating allocations between divisions and entities. We have expense allocations when we're allocating our overheads out or we're allocating down to a service level. We have fully allocated P&L, where we're utilizing PCM as almost an allocation subledger, and we're allocating down to dimensions or to fields that are not part of our chart of accounts, like channel, fund, or region. And of course, we have operational profitability, where we're allocating down to a profit or a customer level and doing our profit or customer or product analytics, profitability analytics. Now, these use cases aren't mutually exclusive. Of course, if we're looking at an intercompany billing use case where we're doing transfer pricing, for example, shared service costing or shared service allocations will absolutely fall part of that. But the real reason why they're doing the allocations is for intercompany billing. So that's how we classify it. And this specific classification really helps us to understand what the clients are looking for, but it also helps us to understand some of the challenges that we would face when we implement. So it's an incredibly useful way of classifying. But overall, if you take one thing away from this slide, if you're doing shared service costing allocations, intercompany billing, expense allocations, fully allocated P&L, operational profitability, any of those use cases fit incredibly well within PCM. And if you have a need to do those type of allocations, you really should start looking at PCM and Enterprise PCM. Great. So now that we've talked a little bit about what Enterprise PCM is. We talked a little bit about some of its different use cases. Let's tie that together and talk a little bit about why you want to utilize Oracle Cloud EPCM in your organization and how it can create that business value for you. And what we see typically is that clients go through a journey when we talk about their allocation solutions. Clients typically start in Excel, like everything does. Everything in the finance world tends to start in Excel or a spreadsheet tool. And that makes sense. Everyone has Excel, it's super easy to deploy, everyone understands it. It may work for smaller organizations, but as your organization gets larger, your allocations get more complex, you need to report on them, you need greater governance and controls, Excel becomes not the right solution. And often then clients look and they say, great, well, where else can I do allocations? And especially if they're doing actual allocations, they say, great, I've got a general ledger. General ledger can do allocations. What about putting them in there? And again, your general ledger can do allocations, but it's not great at them. It's not a purpose-built tool for allocations. So there are certain things that you can't do. And there are certain ways that you would have to, for example, prepare a lot of offline spreadsheets in order to prepare your allocation rates to get them into your general ledger so that you can allocate. And of course, that destroys your traceability. And what happens if you want to do budget allocations now? You had actuals, you've done actuals. What happens if you want to do budget or forecast allocations? Where do you do those? Because those can't be done in the general ledger. And eventually, clients get to the point where they have to make a decision. We have a need to do allocations out greater than what the general ledger can handle. What do we do next? And one option is obviously to custom build. You've got Essbase, you've got planning, you've got SQL, you've got whatever other tools, relational databases that you have at your disposal. What about building them in those? And sure, you can. And a lot of clients do. And a lot of clients are incredibly happy with them, at least initially. But over time, they become these little black boxes where everything goes in them. Someone's running it. Someone gives you a result. You don't really know what happens in the back. But at the end of the day, you're getting what you need. So it's kind of okay unless something needs to change. Because if you have to change something, you got to go through a whole IT request cycle to get it done. And that's not ideal. And finally, clients get to the point where they just say, I just want a fast allocation solution. I want something that is flexible, accurate, that can utilize shared methodology and is transparent. And that's where a purpose-built allocation solution like Oracle Cloud PCM and EPCM comes into play. And what we're going to do now is just take an example. We'll take each of those that we spoke about and compare them a little bit. We're going to compare what it looks like to implement your solutions in Excel, some of the advantages and disadvantages, and compare it to some of the advantages you'll see in Enterprise PCM. And then we'll relate it to a customer story. So let's start with Excel. So Excel, everyone knows Excel. I use Excel daily. I mock up a lot of allocations in Excel. It's of course incredibly easy to deploy. It's so quick, so easy to get out there. It's incredibly flexible. If I don't like an allocation result, great, I'm just going to change it, no problem. The problem with that, of course, is that it controls any kind of governance. So how in an Excel model do you track the evolution of your model over time? How do you prove your allocation results? How do you prove what and who made a change in your allocation tool? There's no governance around that. Of course, it is manual and error prone. We've all had the situation where we've done a huge Excel model, we've put a lot of work into it, and we find that we've put in a formula wrong, or it's got an invalid reference or something like that. Of course, it lacks reporting. So, you can do, of course, your graphs and those kind of things in Excel, but it doesn't do disseminated reporting very well. And of course, like I mentioned before, it lacks transparency. If I need to prove out an allocation result, I potentially have to go look through 300 different VLOOKUPs to find out why I produced a result. So not ideal, absolutely can work for smaller organizations though. PCM, on the other hand, is very well, it's systematic and it's documented. So if I make changes, if we want to look at a model that was one state in this month versus how it was 5 months ago or 2 years ago, I can do that. I can also document who made a change and when they made a change. I have an accurate and repeatable model. So it's very easy for me to say, great, I'm going to create allocation methodology that I want to apply to actuals. And I'm going to apply that to January, February, March, and just keep on going. Very easy, just as long as my data set is current and up to date, I can apply that allocation methodology across as many POVs as I want to, but I can apply them against what if and actuals, budgets, whatever management cycle I want. Of course, you have inbuilt and purpose-built transparency and visibility traceability within PCM. It's very easy for us to trace forward, trace back. You have enhanced intelligence and analytics, especially in Enterprise PCM by leveraging Dashboards 2.0 and data exchange. And of course, you can integrate and automate. So these are the advantages when we compare them to Excel specifically. Now, where we got a lot of the pros and cons of each, like I just went through, is through our customer stories, what we've really seen in clients. So we had a client who wanted to do shared service costing. So that's our use case. They're in the banking industry. There were about 3.2 billion in revenue located in North America. Their allocation solution was a combination of Excel and Access. So the easy stuff was done in Excel. The hard stuff was done in Access. And the reason why they ended up going with PCM was because it was part of their EPM and ERP Ground to Cloud initiative. So they were taking up all of the EPM products in this case into the cloud, and they wanted to bring their allocations and make sure the allocations are part of that. Now, some of the challenges they had within their legacy solution. Obviously, they had multiple technologies. So they had Access and they had Excel. Multiple people had to maintain those multiple allocation methodologies deployed across those different technologies. Became very difficult for them to get consolidated reporting, and they had to because it was really focused on their budget process. So they actually had to feed the output from their allocations into their budgeting process. But they also had a lack of transparency because it was done in different technologies, different people. They couldn't have any kind of governance around it. It was very, very hard. They didn't have any ability to change or update their models really as they would like to. They really want to change and simplify, but they can't because it's too much effort to do that. And they had key personnel dependencies. And their objectives really were quite simple at the end of the day. They wanted to have one allocation tool, one allocation solution that could handle all of their different methodologies. They wanted to deploy a methodology across multiple business cycles or multiple management cycles, such as actual, forecast, and plan. They wanted to have what-if capabilities so that they could say, great, is there ways to simplify our allocation methodologies? And can we prove that out? Does it make a big impact if we change a driver? Or does it make a big impact if we go down a different allocation methodology and move away from activity-based costing, for example? They wanted to have enhanced traceability and transparency, I think like most clients do. And they wanted to have a very tightly integrated system between all of their cloud products. So very important to them was getting eBPCS and PCMCS to talk to each other because they had a multi-step allocation process and budgeting cycle. And eventually what their allocation solution looked like in the end was that they utilized DRM. So they, at this stage, did have a mix of both on-premise and cloud products, both in ERP and EPM. And DRM was utilized in order to make sure that the metadata that was across them was consistent and was shared metadata across their different processes. CDM was used to facilitate our inbound and outbound data source, or inbound and outbound from PCM. That was really important. Enterprise planning, eBPCS was our core source for budget and statistics, but their general ledger was actually our source for actuals. But eBPCS was the one that we were focusing on for now, or at least in that implementation, because they were focusing on the budget cycle. So eBPCS was where we pulled our data from. It's also where we got our statistics from for our drivers, and it's also where we sent data back to as well. And PCM was obviously used for their shared services allocations across utilizing multiple methodologies. Now, some of the key benefits they got a huge increase in their flexibility. So they really were able to not only incorporate all of their allocation methodologies into a single tool, but they were able to change them. So pretty shortly after we left, they got the new COA released. They were able to retrofit PCM to fit their new COA. But on top of that, they were also able to expand outside of the initial implementation. And that was important for them because they knew at that stage that various acquisitions were coming down the line and that would cause changes to their model. They needed a way to be flexible enough to change for that in the future. And they did. Ultimately, they were able to reduce their complexity. So what they ended up doing once we had delivered is they said, great, I'm going to use the what-if capabilities, spin off a what-if analysis, change my drivers, change my methodologies, and then I'm going to present to my higher management and show them the net impact of that change in allocation approach. And they were able to do that, and they were able to justify to the higher management to say, look, this simplifying approach that we want to take doesn't fundamentally change the output of our model, but it significantly simplifies our monthly maintenance. And they were able to get that through. The other part of it as well is they could produce the model documentation that helped them to satisfy the audit's requirements. And finally, user experience. That what if analysis that I was talking about, that was all done by the business. So they got rid of the need to keep and involve IT in these models, but they also got the ability to own the model from a business perspective. They also got a consistent experience across all the Oracle EPM business processes like planning and profitability. And of course, they were able to test their methodologies like we went through before. And they've been running it for quite some time now. Okay, so let's talk about our next one. What about the general ledger versus Oracle EPCM? So the general ledger, of course, everyone has a general ledger. You may look at it and say, great, I can deploy my allocations into my general ledger. It's going to be cost efficient for me. And it can be. You also have a lot of governance and controls when you execute your allocations in your general ledger. Now, that's obviously what your general ledger is built for in terms of that. But there are a lot of disadvantages. So your general ledger obviously is not built to adapt and to change to the changing in business environments. It's also not built to change and adapt to changing allocation requirements. And getting changes into your general ledger from an allocation perspective can be incredibly slow. It's also very difficult to get data in and out of your general ledger when you're comparing it to other allocation solutions. Of course, whenever you're putting more into your general ledger from a calculation perspective, you're burdening your general ledger. That's why we have subledgers. And of course, the more you burden your general ledger, the more your potential impact on your financial close. Then finally, just the biggest benefit, the biggest disadvantage of creating allocations in your general ledger is generally related to the amount of manual effort it takes to actually run those allocations. So your general ledger, typically, you have to develop your allocation rates outside of your tool, outside of your general ledger. And you end up having pretty complicated Excel models to develop your allocation rates to feed them back into your general ledger. And the problem with that is now, of course, you've got all the disadvantages of running your allocations in your general ledger and all the disadvantages of running allocations in Excel. So now you've just made things worse. And on top of that, because you're doing things external to the ledger, your traceability and reporting is just not there. It's really not where you want it to be. Now, in Enterprise PCM, when we compare the two, of course, we not only want to take your allocations that are in the general ledger and put them into PCM, you all want to take all that external manual effort and put that into PCM as well. That's going to reduce your manual tasks. It's also going to increase your traceability and transparency. Of course, PCM is built for rapid change. So we can build custom build, or you can purpose build your dimensional model to suit what you need it to do. You're not really restricted to only the COA chart fields. So you can build it to meet your needs. And when you build in the dimensional model to meet the needs that you need it to, you, of course, have much better flexibility, much more able to respond to change and still get all that incredibly enhanced reporting that you need as well. Of course, you can do multiple management cycles as well. You're not just handicapped to actuals. You can do budget and forecast and what if as well. And of course, especially if you are already in the Oracle EPM world, you've got advantage and you can leverage that existing knowledge that you have in-house. That's especially apparent in Enterprise PCM. If you've got eBPCS resources or FCCS resources, they can help with a lot of the elements within PCM. Of course, your modeling elements will be unique to PCM, but everything else they can assist with. Of course, because it's on the common EPM platform, you get enhanced data integration. PCM and EPCM both play incredibly well with other technologies from an inbound and outbound perspective. And of course, you get enhanced reporting as well. So let's relate that to a customer story. So this next client, they are a intercompany billing and FERC reporting use case. They're a utility company. So just the fact that they have intercompany billing, FERC reporting, and the utilities means that this application is going to come under a lot of scrutiny because it's going to be involved in regulatory industry, a regulated industry. They're about $2 billion in revenue. I think that's gone up significantly since we actually implemented because they've gone through a lot of acquisitions. They are in North America. The legacy application was actually PowerPlan for allocations. And their change catalyst was a large-scale ERP and EPM alignment. So they had recently gone through quite a lot of mergers. They wanted to get everyone onto the same page. So they wanted to go everything Oracle. It was a mix, though, of Oracle. So they had a lot of on-premise Oracle implementations going on, and PCM was actually their first cloud implementation, excuse me, that they were going through. So what were some of the challenges that they had in the legacy tool? Well, lack of transparency in their allocated results. That's not a shock. They had a lack of reporting capability. Getting reports out of their tool was extremely slow. You also had to know how to get it. They had almost zero what-if capability. They had almost no capability to run their forecast either, which was a huge drawback for them. And very importantly, their tool was also incredibly manual. So what would end up happening is that they develop some allocation rates, put them into the tool, into the allocation solution, run allocations up to a certain point, stop, extract the results, develop further allocation rates, then feed them in again, then continue the allocations. And you can imagine how manual and frustrating that was, and also how long that took, how it extended their close period. And because of that, because the technology they used was relatively niche in the allocation sense, they also had to rely on very, very skilled personnel to make updates. It really was not an application that was owned and run by the business. And some of their objectives that they wanted to do when we got into this project is they wanted to reduce the overall time it took to produce the monthly income statements. Their allocations, their intercompany billing, was obviously incredibly important in producing the income statements, and it often held them back because their process was so slow. They really wanted to make their allocation solution business focused, to have ownership, take ownership of it. They wanted that to be in the most friendly and manageable way possible. They wanted to make things, as I said, more efficient, but they also wanted to make things more flexible. And they also wanted to be able to run multiple management cycles, such as forecast, budget, and of course, what if. They wanted to expand their existing methodologies. So as I mentioned before, that were quite aggressive in their acquisitions. So as they got on new companies, they wanted to be able to change and adapt and grow. And above all, they wanted to create confidence in the numbers. They were getting a lot of questions, rate-based questions on the results of the allocations. Obviously, their intercompany billing in part was used to justify their rate increases. It was quite difficult for them to actually justify the numbers. And of course, that's never what you want. You want confidence in the allocation of numbers, especially when it's used inside of a regulated industry. So what did their solution look like? Well, again, they use DRM. They have a lot of different on-premise versus cloud. PCM was their first cloud. So they were very comfortable in DRM to have shared metadata management between the on-premise and cloud worlds, as well as ERP and EPM. Our data source for this application was the GL. So we pulled data from Oracle EBS, as well as pulling from Hyperion Planning. So Hyperion Planning provided both our forecast and our budget data, and the statistical data that we used to drive our actuals. And then finally, PCM was used for the actual allocation action as well. And really, they had quite an interesting model. They had a mix of both periodic allocations as well as year-to-date allocations across multiple methodologies. And of course, they actually fit the data back into the general ledger as well. And these key benefits that I'm going to go through with you now, these key benefits, we actually did a presentation with this customer at Kscope a few years ago. And these key benefits was actually written by the customer, not by us. So this is really what they got out of the system. They got that flexibility. So similar to our other clients, they were able to actually expand their model as they got on new acquisitions, or as they acquired new companies rather. They were able to expand their model, and they actually did that on their own without us helping. They were really having a systematic versus manual processes. They had shared methodologies between the different managed cycles as well. Their traceability was massively increased. So they really had the ability to justify, or really at least to defend, their post-allocation results by being able to drill forward and drill back in their allocations. They're also able to use real versus stale rates like they were using in their previous technology. And PCM actually retained all the allocation detail for both the model and the data. So what that means is they could go back in time and say, great, 6 months ago, this is how we were running our model versus today. And this specific client actually did get a rate question, and PCM was actually mentioned in the staff report where they actually successfully justified that rate question. Now, on the reporting side, this was actually a client who was still doing PCM. They're potentially going through the process of going to enterprise PCM. But they got a lot of the benefits just by being in PCM, being able to utilize SmartView, by being able to quickly compare different POVs. And when we exported the data to the general ledger, we were actually able to add additional ledger details or details in the export for the journal categories that gave them actually more traceability within the ledger itself than they had previously. And then finally, their user experience. So they had a huge increase just in their user experience. They didn't have to rely on IT anymore. They didn't have to rely on specific individuals for any kind of technical knowledge. They were really able to run the allocation on their own and to have faster feedback development loops. Had faster development and feedback loops. It was a lot easier to answer questions, as I mentioned before. And of course, as they got to use PCM, they got more familiar with the cloud as well. So that was a big plus for them in getting confidence in moving towards the cloud as well. So our last one, when we talk about custom applications versus PCM. Now, custom applications for me, when I talk about it in the context to allocation solutions, can be anything from Essbase and planning to relational database models, access, anything like that. Anytime you're developing an allocation solution in a non-purpose built allocation solution, you're custom building essentially. And custom building can be great. Don't get me wrong, it's sometimes they are what you need. They are incredibly customized, as the name would suggest, and they give you a lot of flexibility in that customization. So you can build it exactly like you want it. You can also leverage in-house technical knowledge. So if you're a big SQL house, you can build it in SQL, and potentially, you can have some cost savings, initial cost savings in that way. But they have a lot of disadvantages overall. They tend to be more technical, not end user focused. If you have to make a change, you got to go back to IT. That can take months to get through for an even relatively simple change. When we talk about that, because of that, they can be very slow to adapt as well. Because of their custom build, because they were exactly what you wanted at that point in time, they can be slow to adjusting and adapting to what you need. So they were exactly what you wanted, but over time they may not be what you need anymore. And they have difficulty tending of growing as well. Now, because of that, they can often lack traceability and transparency. Again, you have this issue of what did my model look like 5 years ago versus what it looked today? How do I produce the documentation on a consistent basis, noting how it changes over time? And by far, the biggest disadvantage, they tend to lack trust. So over time, as people leave your organizations, as the people who developed them and was involved in the development of those custom applications leave, the new people don't understand a lot of the nuances of what went through in terms of creating that application. And what ends up happening is people don't trust the numbers. Your custom application becomes this little black dot, this little black box that no one knows about. You just see a number of the output and you're supposed to trust it. Now, PCM can help with a lot of that. You can still leverage in-house capabilities. So as we mentioned before, if you've got the Oracle EPM implemented in other products, other business processes like planning or FCCS, you can leverage a lot of that in-house knowledge on how to maintain your Oracle EPCM app. You, of course, get more traceability and visibility transparency, like we've spoken about as well. You get enhanced integration and automation just by virtue of Oracle and Oracle EPM. And of course, you get a constant improvement. So with your custom built applications, the way that they were built originally, even if it was 10 years ago, they tend to stay the same because it costs money to improve it. It costs money to add new features to it. With Oracle PCM, specifically in EPCM, it's a constant improvement. Oracle's constantly making things better. You can choose whether you want to take advantage of that, but you're always gaining new features, new functionality, new benefits. And overall, it tends to be a lower cost of ownership because you're not having to go back to IT always to make these changes that you need. Your business users can make them directly in the app as they need to. So let's look at our final customer story. This customer was using EPCM, in this case for operational profitability. At the product level, they were going down to a product line and SKU level. They are in the distribution industry, about 3.7 billion, located in North America. Their legacy application was actually Essbase, a combination actually of Essbase and planning. And again, they were using EPCM as their real first step into the cloud. They wanted to get to the cloud. They were almost certain they wanted to move, and PCM was their first kind of step into that. So some of the key challenges of their legacy application. was that it really wasn't user-friendly. Anyone who, if you're a business user, if you get sent a calculation script from Essbase with 5,000 lines in it, that doesn't, if that doesn't scare you, then you're obviously very different to me. But it was difficult to update, not user-friendly. It was also very time-consuming to make updates to it. It was very slow to make the updates. It was in a shared environment, shared reporting environment. So making updates to it could make affect other processes within other reporting elements. It wasn't flexible. They wanted it to grow. They wanted to, for example, their legacy was at the product line level. They wanted to go to a SKU level. That application or their legacy couldn't grow like that. It just wasn't able, and that's scalable. And because they were building it within the confines of an existing reporting application, it really didn't have the traceability that they needed to. And this client, really the objectives that they wanted to have, they were refreshing in a lot of ways because they weren't tied to a specific technology. So they wanted the best allocation solution that they could have. They didn't mind if it was Oracle or anything else. They just wanted the best allocation solution for them. And what they wanted to do was take their Essbase and planning allocations, put them into a new tool, make it easy to run, have seamless reporting, make it automated as much as possible, and make sure it was scalable to grow. And their solution overall, again, they were using DRM. DRM's amazing. EDM is much more amazing. So I absolutely love EDM. It just happens that the customer stories I'm showing you today all use use DRM. But they use DRM in the same way as the other customer stories. They used FDME and data exchange to move data to their ground and cloud and to move between the various technologies. They had a combination of Essbase and planning that provided us with both our actuals, budget, financial data, as well as the statistical data. They had Snowflake that actually provided us with the SKU level or the product level data. And they used PCM to actually do their allocations. And we are coming up on time, so I'm going to go through the benefits fairly quickly, but they are in line with the other benefits, that they got a huge increase in flexibility. They got an increase in traceability, being able to trace all the way forward and all the way back. That obviously had a big impact in being able to analyze their product lines and product SKUs and being able to identify truly profitable and non-profitable products and product lines. They had enhanced reporting. They were able to use the dashboards in EPCM to create visuals that helped to really bring the data to life. They had much better application interconnectivity. So they were able to leverage EPCM to connect to their various on-premise and cloud technologies, as well as the Oracle and non-Oracle technologies. And they were able to automate that so that they really got a very streamlined process. And then finally, the user experience. So their users were actually able to update and run their model. So I know I haven't left too much time for closing and Q&A, but just to kind of very quickly close, we've gone through those various use cases of Enterprise PCM. If you need an allocation solution that is fast across any of the various use cases that we kind of showed you today, you really should be looking at PCM and Enterprise PCM, especially if you're on the enterprise licensing. It doesn't have a licensing cost to you. You can deploy it within your own world. But overall today, I really hope I've kind of shown you what Enterprise PCM, how we can use it for more than just profitability analytics, and of course, how it can add value to your business. So I hope everyone enjoyed today. I think we haven't got too much time left, but we can certainly open up for questions for any time we have remaining.
Thank you, Andrew. There is a question here for you. Did you post journals to the ERP from the allocated data? And if yes, was there a requirement to create invoices from those journals?
So I'm assuming that question is in relation to the intercompany billing. So in that specific client, yes, we posted to the general ledger. It was a direct connection, so we actually posted directly to it. In that specific client, we didn't produce journals in that specific, but we have done clients where it's more operational transfer pricing. And then yes, we have produced the journals outside of PCM. We both we create journals that we post to the ledger, and we create the invoices that are actually distributed between the different business entities.
Great. Well, that wraps up today's Q&A. Thank you all very much for attending today's webinar. Please check out our website and follow us on LinkedIn at Alithya Digital Cafe to stay up to date on our upcoming webinars, events, and more.
Okay, thanks, everyone.